to be able to effectively police those communities.
Yeah, that's important. That trust is important in communities like Providence, Central Falls, Pawtucket, Woonsocket, which have large immigrant populations, largely Latino or Hispanic, but others too. We have, all this discussion of undocumented immigrants. It isn't just Hispanic immigrants. We have a lot of immigrants from other countries as well, and I don't know to what degree some of them are documented or not. Most probably are documented, but there are some that aren't. And most of the public news seems to be focusing always on the Hispanic population. But those cities have large Hispanic populations where if the police were to do that as a regular thing, they would really be creating distrust among the population and the police force.
Absolutely.
So we didn't do that. And we still don't do that in Providence. That's still a policy in Providence.
That's right. And most major urban cities have also taken a position against secured communities and the like programs.
Secure Communities is a database, right?
Well, Secured Communities is a program where the federal government is seeking to have all law enforcement participate, where if a person is arrested, they would be fingerprinted as they are now, but those fingerprints would now then go through the immigration database to see if that person has an immigration violation or an immigration hold or is wanted in some way by immigration authorities.
But if they don't, if they have not committed a crime and if there's no prior deportation decision that they've fled from and violated, evaded, do they let people go?
Well, yeah, they have the discretion. That is, ICE has the discretion.
Immigration Customs
Enforcement, correct.
The new immigration name, yeah.
Yeah. So they do have prosecutorial discretion, and if they come across a person who is not committing crimes and maybe has a family, maybe young children at home, they do have the ability to allow that person to remain here. They're not giving them any benefit, they're not giving them legal status, but they're just not going to deport them. And in fact, that's a program that President Obama started last summer.
All right. Those two bills, E-Verify and overturning Governor Chafee's decision not to use the Secure Communities database for every time you confront someone who the police might think. I get a kick out of that, by the way. How do you know someone's an undocumented immigrant or not? The only way you can find out is you ask them for identification, which if they're not doing anything wrong,
there's no reason to ask for it.
Is really unfortunate. Is really un-American, to use a term. And it always reminds me of Nazi Germany when I hear these things. Where are your papers? Like we got to walk around with papers now. The Supreme Court ruled a long time ago. You don't have to have identification. It's not illegal. It is not illegal to walk around in the United States of America without identification. Let's talk about two bills that have been introduced in the Assembly to assist the immigrant community. One is driver's license, which I understand of a temporary nature, and the other is, which is very controversial, to allow children of undocumented immigrants to pay the in-state tuition rate for colleges. Let's take the driver's license first. Where is that at this point? Who introduced that? Senator Picciotto and Representative Diaz, I think.
No, that was introduced by Representative Leo Medina.
Oh, okay.
And it received a House Corporations Committee hearing just last week.
Roberto?
What that bill would do is, if someone has been assigned an identification number, which we typically call an A number by the immigration authorities, and that person is in the process of getting their legal status in this country, which sometimes could take a few years, that person will be eligible now.
I found out it's pretty expensive, too, to become an immigrant.
It can be, yes.
A citizen. We'll talk about that later.
So if that person's in the process, if this bill is passed, they will be issued a driver's license for a one-year period, subject to renewal at the end of the year.
So this person's not a citizen.
Or a permanent resident.
And they're not a legal resident.
Correct.
They're undocumented immigrant.
But they're in the process.
But they show evidence of having applied for citizenship already? Is that
for permanent residence, because you don't.
You apply for permanent residency.
One further step. Yes.
Would that affect people whose, say a student visa or work visa that has expired? Would that person,
Well, it may.
they probably have a legal license already, but it's going to expire at some point.
Right, and that person would not be able to renew their license if their status has expired the way the law is now. However, if that person's in the process, let's say that person got married to a U.S. citizen and the U.S. citizen's spouse filed a petition, now this person would be able to get continue to get his driver's license.
Why are people opposed to that? I mean, I live in the south side of Providence, which has a heavy immigrant population, heavy Hispanic immigrant population, plus some Africans and Asians and all. And as far as I'm concerned, people go to work every day. Most of these folks are going to work every day. And if you read the paper about how RIP is cutting back on services, if you don't have a car, if you don't have an automobile around Providence, boy, you're stuck. Some of these folks have to drive, outside the city to get to work. Or even drive, even if it's a temporary employment place, they have to get there and then they drive them in a van. Why are people opposed to what seems like an opportunity for people to remain working or to acquire work? Well, because they need a driver's license to get there. A lot of people have cars. The irony is you're just encouraging people to get a car and drive it without a license, because that happens too, as we know. Yeah. Why are people against that? I don't know.
There are people who have nativist, beliefs, and they don't want to do anything that they think might encourage people to immigrate to this country. They would like nothing better than to shut the immigration door down totally. So I think that's a part of it. I mean, it's a sad reality that in our society we have this.
What it does is encourages people to drive without a license too.
Exactly, which you and I have to pay for because our insurance rates account for them. And not only that, but the state is losing out on a good source of income.
I had a personal example of that 4 years ago. 4 years ago, with another car, not the one I have now. A guy, he didn't run a stop sign. It was one of those run through. Young kid, about 26, 27. He banged up my car. It wasn't extensive damage, but it was going to be $100, $150. So I get out, gave me his driver's license. Got no insurance. I could tell right, the kid's Spanish. He's got an accent. He's nervous as a cat. And I said, so he's called the police. Oh, don't call the police. It wasn't that big it was a good fender bender, but it wasn't, and thank God no one was hurt. There was a woman with him who claimed it was his mother. Said he had a job, and he'd pay me. I said, well, $100. So I don't have, he said, I'll pay you Friday. Gave him my address. He came by my house on Friday. Gave me $100 for the damage. But I could see right there and then the kid had a job. He's going to get into trouble. He's going to lose his job. It wasn't a serious accident. I mean, these things happen. And there was a kid who, was afraid that if the police came, he was going to get into all kinds of problems. Yeah. So let him go. And a friend of mine said, "Oh, that's the last you'll see of him, Joe." No, this happened on a Monday. Friday, he showed up and gave me $100. So most people want to do the right thing, but that kind of a bill is just going to encourage people to drive without a license.
Right. And
it's only for 1 year. Take it a year at a time, see what happens.
3 states have passed legislation allowing undocumented students, undocumented people to obtain a driver's license. State of Washington, New Mexico, and Utah. And none of those states have reported any problems with the law. And in fact, before 9/11, undocumented people used to get a license.
Funny thing in the news today, you probably read in the paper the other day, poor president. President Obama's uncle got stopped, who lives in Massachusetts, driving under the influence. I've read enough to know that it's his father's half-brother, because some men in Africa have a lot of wives, so for all I know, his father might have 20 children. So, I mean, he's not really close to them, but bloodline is there, so they said, President Obama's uncle. So today, in Massachusetts, a judge, this is funny in a way, not. A judge they take his license away when you get stopped at DUI. Judge granted him a hardship license so he could go to and from work only in Framingham. He works in a liquor store.
That is ironic.
That's nice. There's the problem right there. But anyway, it makes the news because it's the president's, a relative of the president.
Right, right.
But I mean, I think that's ridiculous. If you give it to a person for 1 year and they show they drive well, no violations, a year, another year goes by, fine. You've got a responsible driver.
Right, and the other thing is you've actually put that person through the examination. You know, they have to show that they know the rules of the law, they know how to, you know, the signs, and they know how to obey and drive correctly.
You know, none of that. We've talked about this before. The big myth is that illegal or undocumented immigrants don't pay taxes. That's bull. First of all, even if they have a fake Social Security number, they're paying taxes, and some of them are paying taxes and Social Security that they'll never collect because they're afraid, or maybe they go back home after 20 years. The other thing is people buy homes in Providence, they pay real estate taxes. If they rent, they're still helping to pay real estate taxes. So let's put that myth to bed that they don't pay. Now, the other two issues are, as we're getting on in time here, one was the in-state tuition, which is a big controversy, and what's the latest on that legislation now? We know, by the way, let me set the Board of Governors of Higher Education last year approved that children of undocumented immigrants could attend our state colleges at the tuition rate, which was about, I don't know, I think
2.5 times the in-state rate.
The thing that always struck me is, if you're an out-of-state resident, it's $16,000 more per year to go to URI or Rhode Island College than it is for. That's outrageous. I mean, I could understand 5,000, 6 maybe, but 16,000. Very few families can afford that.
Right.
So they're saying, let us pay the resident rate. You know, and we go, what's the latest on that?
Well, as you correctly said, the Board of Governors implemented a change in the policy allowing undocumented students to attend the 3 post-secondary education institutions in the state of Rhode Island at the in-state rate. Now, in the legislature this year, there have been a number of bills introduced to undo that, and there have been a number of bills introduced to codify that. So that those bills have not yet received a hearing as of this.
You know who's going to be the beneficiary of that if that passes?
We all are.
Well, we all are if the young people can go to college at the in-state tuition. If that is overruled by the legislature, that you're going to pay the out-of-state tuition, you know who's going to benefit? Private colleges, Johnson and Wales, Providence College. They'll say, we'll take a young man or woman whose parents are not citizens or not even here, didn't get here. We'll take them and we won't charge them $29,000 a year.
Right, and
they're going to benefit, and the state college is going to lose out.
And that's happened over the last few years. A lot of these students have ended up in private institutions.
Johnson and Wales,
even Brown University.
Roger Williams, Brown University.
A lot of these are straight A students, valedictorians. I just came across one that won the Cyber National Award, right, for computer
technology.
Yeah, for creating programs to protect.
Denying the children of undocumented immigrants the in-state tuition rate is just another example, if they overrule that, of how this state does not support higher education. Because colleges are screaming